start with the Juvenile NPR Tiny Desk
Yes.
run. So, all right, I to be honest, like NPR's Tiny Desk, I've seen clips of the stuff. I think some of the stuff has been really fun. It makes me think a lot. It's not this, but it does make me think of like MTV Unplugged when I was younger.
Yeah.
Obviously this isn't unplugged, but like it's kind of like we're basically doing renditions with artists, and they're doing a deconstructed version of their classic songs or whatever else. And I've seen some really fun stuff over the time. Obviously, we had Usher do it last year, and he had memes to death with the watch this and all that kind of stuff. And
Megan Thee Stallion has a
Juvenile,
really good one too.
who does?
Megan Thee Stallion.
Megan Thee Stallion does, yeah. Okay. I mean, there've been a few that have caught my eye. Megan was one of them. There was also one with who was it? Actually, that wasn't a Tiny Desk, but that was of similar ilk. It was Jasmine Sullivan a couple years ago. But um, yeah, she should have one. She doesn't have one. But anyway, that girl was saying. Anyway, Juvenile has his, and I'm always thinking about like rappers doing Tiny Desk as far as like the awkwardness of you know what the lyrics sound like, and you know what NPR kind of does, and like the queasiness that people that were in charge of production must have had for trying to get some of the lyrics to go through, and or whatever else. I'm not trying to get them to go through, but like having to stomach those lyrics. And obviously it's not 1999 exactly, but it still is people being queasy over people thugging it out over the airwaves.
We couldn't get him talking about the Oscar Mayer.
Apparently not. And it was funny because you can't get the skit with Benny Fresh doing Leroy Urashima. Oh my god, that is a skit that like boy, like don't
no.
Like you think of like when you think about like, oh, people talk about how come there aren't any skits and interludes anymore, because they were outright offensive. That's why we can't be doing that no more. So yeah. Juvenile did his, and Manny was there, and I thought it was great. And they pretty much for close to a half hour, I think it was like 26 minutes, something like that. They pretty much hit everything that I would expect them to hit. And I thought that like the interplay with the band and Manny, kind of coming in and doing his unserious verses from time to time, and also doing his DJing, like definitely livened it up. And the people that were there. That were listening to it, like they were into the songs, and some of the cuts to some of the fans and some of the people in the audience dancing were like all-time memes, where he's like, so random bland white guy number 5 is just there with a big NPR shirt and he's grooving it to stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know if he's ever heard this song before, but it looks like he's having fun, and this is great. So yeah, what were your thoughts on the Tiny Desk from Juvenile?
Man, I thought it was great. I thought it was something that should be preserved. In whatever you can send this to the African American History Museum or something in Washington D.C., because it was just so cool to see all those songs. And Manny Fresh making some of that stuff on the SP1200, some of that stuff and other means like keyboards and all that. But I was interested in the substitutions for like what would kind of be what, and it all sounded pretty good for a long time. Like more of maybe like the rap that came out in like the mid 2000s. I didn't like when they did live bands with that stuff, but I liked it in this, and maybe that's like a function of Manny Fresh being around live instruments, and Juvenile being around live instruments their whole lives in New Orleans.
Because of the whole second line stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything just flowed, and it was such a joyous thing to see Juvenile there. And then I was just looking, I was like, man, I feel like this guy's really underrated now at this point. Like, just so many dope songs. And I got in the car and I was riding around with Catherine and playing a bunch of Juvenile, and it was just like, yeah, he has a lot of stuff that you can play with your woman. He has a lot of stuff that's like, extremely well written, great choruses that are just stuff to chant along to, and it's just like anthems. And it's like, do people realize like how great this guy was? Has he ever really gotten his just due?
Probably not.
And thinking about Cash Money, like people like think of Cash Money nowadays, they're like, oh, Drake, Wayne, and Nicki Minaj. I'm
Right.
like, you got to start with Juvenile.
Yeah.
Especially like when we're talking about putting an album together and all that. Who's got better albums off of Cash Money than Juvenile?
I mean, it's up for debate. You asked me what's the best thing that Cash Money's ever put together as a single album from one artist. I'd probably still say 400 Degrees, right? But like, I don't know how much of that is like the nostalgia of like that's what I grew up on, and also the part where like it is one of the greatest rap albums ever. It's weird with him, like
has one of the biggest songs ever.
Yeah. I think the thing with Juvenile is like he has that kind of like, it's like the same thing you have with Plies, right? Where like if you have never listened to a Plies record or a Plies album, and you just heard like their outlandish, ridiculous things he said, and you listen to like his lyrical content as far as the level or whatever level of complexity that you think is there or is not, you can think that like, oh, he's just an average rapper or he is a bad rapper. And then you play off the whole Southern guys can't rap thing without accounting for the part where like it's hard to be lyrically like that kind of level with like the tempo of the beats are slower. People just don't know that because a lot of people don't actually rap, right? You know that, I know that because we've been around that. We understand like the differences in the tempo changes, the kind of things you can do with whatever.
That's why I like beats that are 90 BPM or above.
Right. So you can go out with the pen and pad and start putting, multiple syllable words together at the end of the rhyme shit. Anyway, so it's a thing where it's like, as you mentioned, like the content matter and like making it all tie into the hook and like being on subject and more or less telling the story, if you will. Juvenile was great at that. Like if you play I was gonna say, if you play "Get It From My Mama,"
yes,
like,
that's a great concept. It's like, think about this concept. Right, if it was a term paper, it's like you can just write shit forever about it.
Right. But it's just the idea of that hook is like, but you hear the hook and you don't think about that. You're just like, a big fine woman make you smile when she pass you. Damn, that bitch sexy. Her mama got ass too. Like no one's going to go through that and be like, oh yeah, he's definitely like staying on topic. Like it's like all of it ties together to the hook. Like people just like, this is fucking outrageous. Like and this person's off the wall with it and he's off the chain. And you just think like, hey, this man is talking about like this woman's sexy and her mama got ass. Like it's just funny. It's just funny, right? And like that same thing with like what applies too. And I'm just trying to make it like a more common or a more topical, or more something you've seen like more in the last like 10 years or whatever else compared to like what was 25 years ago. So yeah, I think that I think I've always thought that he was underrated in that, from that particular type of thing. Like, right, there's been tons of rappers that like I don't necessarily think are the greatest rappers ever, but like they have put together like pieces of work that just like you can't take that from. Like Rich Boy album, like you can't take that from him. Like Boats, based on a true story from 2 Chainz, you can't take that from him, right? You can, I think at this point, like 2 Chainz has rapped enough people's records to be like, nah, you can't say that dude can't rap. That man went on a record with Big Sean, Kanye West, with whoever was writing with that shit for Kanye West, and Pusha T, and smoked them boys. Yeah, and got the fuck out of there. So I just think that like it's one of those things where time passes by, and also like the way his run went, where it's like he drops 3 albums and then like does the stuff for the Hot Boys, and it's kind of like goes to the contract dispute thing with Cash Money, and then he's gone for a year or 2 or 3 years or whatever else, and he's back, and like that's kind of like the
it. Yeah. Like he's still putting out music, but
like Project English is like not Project English. No,
In My Life.
Yeah, is that the one that has In My Life?
I'll take
I can't remember. Anyway, that one has Rodeo and Slow Motion and In My Life. Like that's just basically like the last of his run, kind of. So that's like 2004, 2005.
Juve the Great.
That's what it is. Right. Yeah. Right. Juve the Great. Yeah, Project was way before that. That's like That's like soldier rags and shit. Yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much it. So you it's kind of had to run like most gangster rappers, like had to run, goes about runs about 5 years, has something else, and then like he's kind of gone from the limelight. So it's easy to kind of just sweep that to the side or whatever else, or whether or not he's underrated, because it's like you don't even think about it anymore unless you go back and play the older stuff. So
and I would encourage people to check out like that stuff he was doing with DJ Jimmy, and then like they put a lot. I think it was like in 2000 or 1999, they like brought out like these old recordings or whatever that basically like one of those. You remember how when the game came out, like JT the Bigger Figure had like, yeah, I got this other game album that y'all never heard before, so we gonna put that out too. That's kind of what it was, but it's pretty interesting to see like the evolution of his style from like the early 90s into the late 90s when they were on top of the world and all that. And it's just like, this is a really talented dude, and I thought the performances were great, just hitting every word. I thought the use of the singers for the rodeo song, and it was just like, just thinking about it, I was like, man, this is just such a well put together thing, like just mapping all the stuff out. Like 400 Degrees was on there, of course. They did Back That Ass Up twice or whatever.
Encore.
And it's just like, yo, this is a lot of talent that is largely underappreciated, because we talked about Manny Fresh last year on the show, and then Juvenile, and it's like, I hope these guys make a killing like in their like essentially their victory laps around the festival circuit and everything like that, going overseas. Like, I hope they make a killing, like, because like rock and roll gets to have their rock guys on the stage until 70, 75 years old and all that, right? And 50 Cent's doing his last world tour right now or whatever, right? And it's like, these guys deserve it, I think.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They earned it. Like, I know you earned it thing. It was just like, nah, man, like they were like, that shit like was like electric coming out the radio when I would hear that when I was a kid. So like, seeing like them being alive, them being black men and still being alive, probably in their late 40s, early 50s. That's something good in itself, because that's not always the case. Like, DMX isn't here anymore with us, so like, I just want people to appreciate what this guy did, appreciate that performance, because that performance, I think, is an all-time rap thing. I think everyone should consider this as such and check it out and evaluate it for yourself. But like, we talk about people being on the Source Awards, like Biggie's performance at the Source Awards, sitting on the throne. Like, I'll always remember the Juvenile Tiny Desk, because like of where it started from. It was like on Twitter, he didn't even know what Tiny Desk was, and then either it was that or it was a clever marketing scheme, whatever it was, right? He was like, yeah, do 10,000 retweets and I'll see what it does. And then like, he just started getting the love. People like, yo, we want to see this. And they put it together, and I think it was something that should be commended, and shout out to all the musicians that helped bring that shit to life too, because it was like, I wanted to watch it again. Like,
like I think they brought out was it they bring out Trombone Shawty?
Yes.
Yeah. That was fun. So what did I want to say? Yeah, so when it came to the run down the list, like when he plays Set It Off, because actually like first he starts it off and he plays like in the instrument, the music players, like the instrumentalists, like they're playing like a cover of the intro to 400 Degrees. And I'm like, I've never considered that like on a Tiny Desk I would ever hear the intro to 400 Degrees. Like, Manny was awesome with his intros to some of those early albums. Like, they were just like awesome. So and they're not even just like, it's a random instrumental he's played that's in the vault or whatever else, and like is Birdman or Wayne or Juvenile just talking shit over it, or Manny in that particular situation actually is like doing his actual rundown from that song where he's like, ladies and gentlemen, this is he's basically the hype man. He's basically like, we finna bring out this motherfucker Juvenile or whatever. So then they cut the 400 Degrees. It sounds great. And then they play Set It Off, and like, I love Set It Off so much. And like with the horns,
Manny's doing the live ad libs.
Yes. It just, we were talking about
Clown.
that we were talking about that when we talked about Manny on his like when I was basically describing is like the block is hot, where it's like, where the fuck did that come from? Apparently that was just him sampling himself. I always thought I was like, bro, what is that? Like, did he just like, sample DJ Combo straight off of like the audio from Killer Instinct? But whatever. But it was great, man. It was really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's time to move on.